We're delighted to be here and share our story with you. My wife, Dotty, we've been married 62 years. And that's part of our story. We've been in the ditch a lot on our marriage, but God has pulled us out. And so I think now that we're gonna make it. Let me start. When I graduated from the Naval Academy, I'd fallen in love with airplanes. And I had back then there wasn't an Air Force Academy, so you could volunteer for the Air Force. And so I said, well, I can Naval Aviation or Air Force. And so it was a big decision. Well, it was made for me, that decision was made for me by a doctor at the Naval Academy. He said, Dotty Duke, we found astigmatism in your right eye, and you don't qualify for Naval Aviation, but the Air Force will take you. So, I went into the Air Force, which was a great opportunity for me. And this was 1957. And I was in flight school ready to take off when Sputnik went overhead, his first satellite. And then in 1959, I was on my way to Germany when NASA was formed. The first 7 astronauts were selected. 2 years later, 1961, I'm sitting alert in a fighter interceptor squadron at Ramstein when it was announced that Yuri Gagarin was in space, the first human being, Russian cosmonaut. Shortly after that, there was an announcement that Alan Shepard became the first American in space. And I was too young, too inexperienced to think about being an astronaut. And so I ended up volunteered for a graduate school at MIT to get a master's degree. And while I was there, I was working on the Apollo Guidance and Navigation System as my thesis. And then they had the contract to build the Apollo Guidance and Navigation System. And while I was there, I met some of these astronauts who would come up and see how the system operates. And I'd never met anybody who was gung-ho about a job as these guys. I said, well, how did I get that job? And they said, well, finish your degree, go to test pilot school, you might have a chance. So I followed their advice, and we were at Edwards Air Force Base. That's where our first son, Charles, was born. In April of 1966, we were selected. We started 66. We applied in 66, got selected in 67. There was 19 of us, and I started my career as an astronaut. And was very fortunate to work on. We had 9 missions to the moon. 6 landings on the moon, and some people say, well, we didn't ever land on the moon, it's a big fake. I told Katie Couric on TV, national TV, I said, Katie, if we faked it, why did we fake it 9 times? If you're gonna fake something, do it once and shut up. We really did land on the moon 6 times, and I was the 5th landing. So the commander gets out first, and then the lunar module pilot gets out next. And so I was the 10th person to set my feet on the moon, and it was a big thrill, exciting. We didn't, 3 days later, we were time to leave. We didn't want to leave. Come on, Houston, 2 more hours. We're not tired, you know. Come on, give us 2 more hours. Get back inside, guys. It's time to leave. And so anyway, a lot between that first step and the last step. The moon was, as Buzz Aldrin described it, magnificent desolation. It had this gray color and we had mountains to the left and mountains to the right, and we were in a big valley about 8,000 feet above where Neil Armstrong had landed. And the objective was to explore this valley over 3 days, which we did, and we had a little car called the Lunar Rover. We were the second to have the rover, which revolutionized lunar exploration. And so it was a tremendous opportunity for me and a great time to survive. I thought I'd have some pictures today for you, but it turned out my flash drive wouldn't interface with the computer here, so you can just go online. There's thousands of pictures, lunar surface gallery, and there's thousands of pictures of us in Apollo 16 and all the other missions too. So there's a lot of information on the web these days about it, and I was privileged to be the 10th man to step on the moon, and it was a big thrill. Our boys were 5 and 7 at the time, and they're of course adults now, of course, but we decided that we'd take a family picture, and we took a picture of us in the backyard, and so when I got permission from NASA. When I got there, I was going to carry this picture and drop it onto the moon and take a picture of the picture. And when I dropped it, since there was no atmosphere on the moon, it just fell straight down and came face up. And I took the picture, and it was the first and only family picture that was ever on the moon. So the temperature on the surface was 180 degrees Fahrenheit at this time. The higher the sun gets in the sky, the hotter the surface gets. And if you think about it, a day on the moon from sunrise to sunset is 2 weeks. So we were there doing 3 days, early morning to mid-morning of the moon day. And as the sun got higher, the surface got hotter. We collected a couple 100 pounds of moon rocks, and did a lot of experiments, and we were so excited that we didn't want to come back. I made a mistake at the end of the stay. We were going to do the Moon Olympics, and I was going to do the high jump. And down here with all of my gear on, I weighed 363 pounds. Up on the moon, 60 pounds. And I gave a jump, and when I did, I straightened up, and I went over backwards. And that was scary. Fear is not a bad emotion, though, if you don't panic. And the thought occurred to me, roll right. So I rolled to the right and broke my fall, and I'm flat on my back, and my heart's pounding, but I'm still alive. And the suit held together, and everything continued to work. And John Young, my commander, came over and looked down at me and said, "That wasn't very smart, Charlie." And gave me a little cussing out, and he helped me up. And then I looked at, and on the front of the rover, our little car, the TV camera was pointed right at me. And that was the end of the Moon Olympics, by the way. And I learned a lesson: never do anything in space if you hadn't practiced down here. And so we came home, and the problem, I was 36, and I climbed the top of the ladder. What are you going to do now for the rest of your life? And the next several years, I started working on the space shuttle, but it wasn't the same program. So I became very frustrated, and our marriage was in a difficult shape. Dotty was on the verge of suicide at times. And so I want her to pick up and tell you what you did.
Okay. Go keep the schedule. Well, as Charlie said, yes, I was suicidal back when he came back from the moon. And to explain that, when I got married, I was going to follow Cinderella and I was going to marry Prince Charming, and we were going to live happily ever after, and he was going to love me more than anything in the world. So even when he proposed to me, I told Charlie, I'm going to put you first in my life. Will you put me first in yours? Of course, he said yes. So we went on the honeymoon, got back from the honeymoon, and I realized, I'm not first in his life. It is studying at MIT. He goes and locks himself in his room. Because during the courting time, I mean, he was with me all the time, talking to me all the time. And now it was, I've got to get back to the important things and study and do well in school. And then we went to Edwards Air Force Base, where he was a test pilot out there in school. And I realized the airplanes were more important to him than I was. And then he started playing golf again. And I thought, well, golf is more important to him than I am. It just seemed like I was not up there on his list at all. And I became very saddened at that. But I kept thinking, well, I'll get him to love me the way I want to be loved. Well, then he was selected to the space program, and so I supported him, and I was very proud. No, I was not scared. Just to explain a little bit about my faith at that time, I've been in church all my life, but when I was in the university, and listen to this, when I was in the university, I took a course in philosophy and started doubting the existence of God. Continued going to church, but by the time that we were at NASA, I was what I call an agnostic. I didn't know if God existed. Even taught Sunday school, did everything in church, but I didn't have a personal relationship with the Lord at all. So when the marriage started coming apart, I thought, okay, maybe a happy marriage. When he came back from the moon, he had not changed the way that I was hoping he would change, and would focus on a marriage. He now was focused to another program. I did think about divorce. Fortunately, the Lord must have been speaking to me and said, maybe there's not anybody out there that can love you the way you want to be loved. So I thought, well, then the answer to life must be something else. What's the purpose? Why am I here? And I did really a very logical, trying different things like good works, working at church, helping the poor, all these different programs that were good programs, but they weren't bringing me the love that I wanted or the really fulfillment in life that I wanted. So I finally came to the idea of suicide. I thought, well, if life is painful, it was painful to me. I was very lonely. Never saw our marriage getting good. And, you know, if you're going to live and you die, and that's all there is, then just why not die earlier if you're so lonely and unhappy? And we had 2 children at this time, but I even thought that our kids would be better off if I wasn't alive. They didn't know what was going on in my life. I told Charlie, but he kind of ignored it. And so that was what I was going to do, commit suicide. But then our church had a renewal weekend. And I didn't even know what renewal meant, but it was people coming to our church that gave testimony of how Jesus had changed their lives. And I thought, well, now I've tried all these other things, but I really haven't tried Jesus. So after that weekend, I prayed, just by myself, prayed and said, God, I don't know if you're real. Jesus, I don't know if you're the Son of God. But I've made a mess of my life. And if you're real, then I give you my life. And if you're not real, then I'll kill myself. Well, the next morning I woke up and thought, well, they had said they had had prayers answered. Jesus had helped them in these ways. And so the only way I knew to find out if God was real really was to pray and ask him. So I started praying about simple things, just, you know, I need to talk to someone on the phone, and then within 10 minutes, 15 minutes, they suddenly called me on the phone. So many coincidences, and I kept saying, oh, that's a coincidence, or that's luck. But after 2 months of so much luck and coincidence, I realized you can't have that much, and that Jesus is real, and it was just awesome. I can still feel like it was when I realized God is real, he's listening to me, and he wants to intervene in my life. And the Lord showed me through that when I put Charlie first in my life, I was making him my God. I was looking to him to be the perfect husband, to make me happy, to fulfill my life. Well, no man, no human can do that. Only Jesus can do that. mean, I have a King of Kings, didn't I? And so then the Lord, I don't know if I have time to say more at this point, but if you can stay after the break, then I'll tell you about how the Lord helped me to forgive him and love him the word so good. And that's 62 years.
As Dotty was going through this process, I was decided to leave NASA. Most of us that walked on the moon had that big problem. What are you going to do now? And so I decided I'd go into business and make money. So I left NASA, left active duty Air Force, went up to San Antonio area and opened a Coors beer distributorship. And I was going to make my millions selling beer to San Antonio. And after a couple of years, I was frustrated and with this business and decided that maybe this wasn't the right business. So I sold it, and the next, this was 2 years after I opened up. And that was April of 1978. And so there was some guys at our church, and I liked what was happening in Dottie's life, but well, maybe not for me. So anyway, I was started in our church, and this doctor friend of mine said, "Come on, join us for a Bible study on the weekend." So I went to T-Bar-M Tennis Ranch, and Friday night, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, we studied the Bible. It's called Walk. The course was Walk Through the Bible, which was the story of Jesus. And as a result of that weekend, I realized that this is either true or the biggest lie ever perpetrated against humanity. So Jesus says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to God except through me." Did he speak the truth, or did he lie? One or the other. Make up your mind. And so after that weekend, and there are many other scriptures that came to mind and that we studied. And as a result, after that weekend, was sitting in my car and looked at it, and I'd seen what had happened in Dottie's life. And I said, "Jesus, I believe you're the Son of God. I ask you to come into my life." And that was the first time in my life I experienced the peace of God. And I knew that I'd made the right decision. And my life and our marriage was not going to ever be the same. And so that was 1978 or so, and we've been walking with the Lord ever since. And being a moonwalker, it opens a lot of doors. And so we travel all over the world and even talk to presidents and kings in nations all over. Everybody wants to meet somebody walk on the moon. So God has used that walking on the moon to open a lot of doors for our ministry and an opportunity to share the faith that we have and the love and the peace and the joy of walking with Jesus. So that's our story, and we're sticking to it. And thank y'all for inviting us to be here and to share our faith. And the moonwalk, of course, was in my professional life was the highlight of my experience as an astronaut. When we got to the space program, the astronaut was having really problems. Over a series of 8 years, we had 8 people killed, 4 in airplane accidents, 3 in a fire at Kennedy Space Center, where the spacecraft caught on fire during a test, and they were killed. And then it was Apollo 1, and then we had 1 killed in an automobile accident. And so it was just a tough time in the astronaut office, if you will. And so we ended up fighting through that and working through that. And then after that, Apollo was successful. And even Apollo 13, that blew up on the way to the moon, and they lost all their electrical power, was a successful failure, if you will. And we were able to get them back safely. Mission Control were the heroes of Apollo. They saved every flight. And they come up with some decision, some way to get us success and back. And on our flight, 1 hour before we would land on the moon, we had a problem in the other spacecraft that caused us to abort the landing. And it took them 4 hours to figure it out, but we finally figured it out, and they gave us a go for landing. And that was the last revolution that we could still get back to our landing site from orbit. And so Mission Control, thanks to Mission Control, I got to be the 10th man to step onto the moon. So it was and it was, the moon was mostly gray in color where we landed, and it was mountainous, and our job was to select rocks that were unique in this landing area. It was the mountains of the moon, the only mission that got to go and land in the mountains of the moon. If you consider where Neil Armstrong landed and where we landed, it was 8,000 feet difference in elevation. So the rocks were different, of course. And Mission Control got very excited about what we were finding on the moon, since they were very unique. So Apollo created a lot of adventure for the astronauts, for America, and for the world, if you will, to go to a body like the moon and to live there for 3 days on the moon was a tribute to the science and technology of America back in those days. And now we're working on, NASA's working on the Artemis program, and next year we should probably have our first landing on the equator of the moon, but eventually they want to go land at the South Pole, which is going to be very, very difficult. But if there's water on the moon, it's at the South Pole. And so that's what they want to go and explore with. So, what do we do?
And then have a break, and then we'll talk more later.
Okay, I can go on and on and on.
And Charlie will, we're going to do that. So we have some students that need to go to class for their co-curricular activities. This is where everyone goes, ah.